Cool. So today's webinar, it's about Anvil for vertical SaaS. I am the co-founder. My name is Mangit Ng. And I also have Matthew Avon on the call as well. He will be monitoring the Q&A area of the webinar and then selecting some questions for us at the end to respond to. So make sure to add your questions into the Q&A section of the webinar. It's a quick put a face to the names here. Quick agenda rundown for today. We're going to start with what is Anvil, talk a little bit about the use cases where we think Anvil can be helpful, and then why Anvil, kind of some of the reasons, some of the features we've built, some of the reasons why you should leverage Anvil versus building it in-house. And then we're going to jump into a live demo. This will be exciting. It's always fun to do live demos in a webinar or on stage. And then finally, there will be a Q&A session at the end. So again, if you have any questions, please add them into the Q&A portion of the Zoom webinar, and we will make sure to get to as many of them as possible at the end. So to start, what is Anvil? So I realize there's a lot of text here, but Anvil is the developer-first infrastructure for building software that automates paperwork. So that means everything from gathering the data that you need to fill out a PDF to actually setting up the PDFs and then also sending those PDFs through e-signature. Of course, not all paper processes require every single one of these steps, and Anvil makes it easy for you to use just the pieces you need out of the Anvil infrastructure to build the exact workflow and process that you desire. So Anvil, we have this Anvil platform. This kind of just describes how Anvil is separated into various products. There are really four main product areas within Anvil that our customers use. PDF services, that's the underlying PDF service we use for all of Anvil. If you need to generate PDFs or fill out a PDF, Anvil provides API endpoints for doing that. We have Etch eSign. It's a API-driven embeddable e-signature tool. It's also highly customizable for your exact needs, so you can have it inside of your application. Web Forms, this is a really powerful way to spin up data collection. You can add custom logic, you can do dynamic calculations, and then also you can show the fields that are relevant to your workflow based on inputs that are provided in the web form. Another nice thing about web forms is that it captures data in a structured format, which means when a web form is submitted and the data goes onto a PDF, you actually have a completed PDF as well as the structured data that can go straight into your database. And then workflows. Workflows really ties together the previous three products. It's meant to provide a really easy way for somebody who's somewhat technical or non-technical to spin up these online experiences that would replace paperwork. And then that can then be embedded into your product and style to look like your product. Cool. So that was a quick, very high-level overview of Anvil. I promise it'll make a lot more sense when I jump into the demo and you can actually see it live. But we're going to switch over to use cases really quick and just going to highlight a couple of our customers as well as potential use cases that we see. So Anvil really likes working with startups and technology companies, specifically because Anvil is not an expert in the specific vertical, but we are experts at paperwork and taking paperwork online. So here I have called out three of our customers. These are all technology companies. CISO Labor, they do H2A and hiring software, especially for large farms. So oftentimes these are migrant workers that need to be, they need to fill out a bunch of forms to apply for a job. Anvil helps power that entire process. Vouch Insurance, they use Anvil to sell kind of their specialty insurance. Today, the way that they work with Anvil is they have an existing customer that needs to buy some other type of insurance that isn't part of the core vouch insurance offering. So a sales rep would go into Salesforce, find the customer, and there will be a bunch of links there to Anvil workflows. They can then click on one of those links. It triggers a new workflow, Anvil workflow. It fills out the workflow with any information they already have about the customer. And then they send a link to the customer, who then completes the rest of the workflow and signs the documents. And then all of that obviously flows back into their Salesforce instance. And then finally, Carta, they use us for their LLC documents. When you're setting up an LLC and figuring out ownership, there are a bunch of documents that need to be signed. They have embedded Anvil signature flow into their product so that they can actually have a in-app signing experience for all of those documents. Bunch of other use cases. Onboarding is quite a common one. Onboarding, every vertical, every industry has some type of onboarding where you need to collect information from a customer, where you need to use that information to generate some documents and have the documents signed. So that kind of spans all verticals. Compliance and reporting. These are oftentimes documents that are required by governments or a larger entity in order to maintain compliance. A lot of times these are PDFs that need to be submitted somewhere else, and Anvil makes it extremely easy to take the data you have and put it into the PDF, or actually create a workflow that allows you to collect the data, put it into a PDF, and then have all of that output be sucked back into your application. Invoices, receipts, this is pretty common amongst our fintech customers. They need to generate these once a month. And so Anvil makes it really easy to build customizable PDFs using our HTML to PDF tool. And then they can be sent out automatically to their customers. Approval processes, this one's interesting. Anvil does a lot of tracking and audit, creates a nice audit trail of who's viewed a document, who's signed off on it. So we certainly have had customers use us for, approvals where, you create a statement of work and it gets sent through everybody, and each person signs to state their approval of the statement of work, for example, and then that gets then stored as like an archiving kind of like document. And so archiving, that's another good use case where the PDFs get generated, they're stored, it's kind of a record. And then, of course, contracts and agreements. And this is something that there's a lot of e-signature tools out there today. They mostly focus on contracts and agreements. Anvil is great when there are standardized templates for these agreements and contracts, and you need it filled out and have it signed. And of course, it can all be built directly into your product. And lastly, photo books. I kind of put this one on jokingly, but we've certainly had more than a handful of companies use Anvil to generate photo books. They create a PDF version of the photo book and then get sent off for print. So Anvil supports photo books. Cool. So we're going to jump into a little bit of why you should consider using Anvil instead of building this in-house. So Housing Cloud is a company that uses us today. And the way that Stanislav described Anvil to us is it's like a fighter jet. It's very powerful, but you have to overcome that learning curve. And I think that's okay, because Anvil is really built for product teams. Anvil has solved a lot of the technical challenges that surround paperwork and paperwork processes, and provided tools and simple kind of like point and click UI for quickly building out these online workflows. Now, we all know that paperwork can be quite complicated, so there is a little bit of a learning curve in using Anvil because we are so flexible, right? There's a lot of flexibility, and with flexibility, there is a bit of a learning curve. So other reasons why Anvil is cool, and why we like our product. I think one thing is, if you ever worked with PDFs as a software developer, they're really painful to work with. They're generating a PDF or rendering a PDF is a slow process and typically done in the browser. Maintaining the code base for doing that is kind of painful. And so Anvil offloads all of that for you into a simple API and tooling that makes it easy to do this. Our response times for generating PDFs is extremely fast, and it's actually a synchronous API request. So that's how fast it is. So you can send us a request to fill out a PDF or generate a PDF with HTML, and you can expect that PDF to be streamed back to you within the request. This also just makes it so that your developers can focus on building your actual product. I think most of us believe that the future is not PDFs and paperwork, and why would you want to devote an inordinate amount of time to building that if we all think that the future is data first? So let us handle that, and your engineers can really focus on building your core product. Another reason, 0 to MVP fast. Again, I'll demonstrate this in our live demo, but it's extremely easy and extremely fast to get a first version of your workflow built. Once you have it built, you can tweak it, you can add custom logic, you can style it. There's a lot of flexibility, but to get from 0 to MVP is extremely easy and extremely fast. And then not to mention, Anvil has been battle tested, in the field and will scale with your organization, not only from a technical perspective, but also from a usability perspective. As you add more people into your Anvil account to help build workflows, as you expose certain areas of Anvil to your end customers, Anvil helps you scale from that perspective as well. And then finally, I do want to mention compliance is built in. We are SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. We do have BAAs and DPAs, data processing addendums, to make sure you are GDPR compliant and HIPAA compliant. And we also do have a lot of security features built in. We built Anvil to be secure from the start. My personal experience with sending around PDFs with sensitive information over email kind of scarred me. And so with Anvil, that was a big focus of ours when we started building Anvil. Cool. With that, I'm going to jump into a live demo. And so this should be exciting. Cool. Okay. So this here is the Anvil logged in experience. Typically, for the companies that are viewing today, typically this is a view that you would give your internal kind of developers, maybe your support staff, customer success, your product managers. This is something that they would log into to experience and use Anvil. On the left-hand side, we have kind of 3 sections. We have document templates. Document templates allows you to upload a PDF or a docx file, which will be converted to a PDF, and then templatize it so that it can be ready for data to be filled in and populated. We also have Etch eSign. This view here is actually our kind of what we call Etch eSign standalone. It allows you to upload a PDF, add all the fields, and send it out for signature. Very similar to existing e-signature tools out there. But the vast majority of our technology companies that use Anvil actually interact with Etch eSign over API. They will generate a link over API, they'll upload PDFs over API, and then they will present the signature experience inside of their application or provide the link for the customer to then go to and sign. So the vast majority of our customers do not, tech customers do not actually use this unless it's for one-off items We internally use it for our sales contracts. You know, whenever we have a new sales contract, we upload it in here and send it out for signature. And then lastly, we have workflows, and workflows combines the web forms with the PDF generation and the e-signatures. It is also, if you want to build a workflow with just a web form, you can do that as well. Like I mentioned earlier, you can have web forms without PDFs and without e-signatures. It's super flexible, and it's kind of like the most powerful product within the Anvil product suite. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into document templates here and show you an existing template that I created and how you can edit it. And then from there, we're going to build a workflow off of this template. So this here is just a basic background check authorization document with a bunch of different fields. There's a checkbox, there's a signature field, and there's a signature date field. I had already gone through and tagged most of this PDF, but why don't we go ahead and edit it so I can show you how easy it is to tag. Now, if you have a fillable PDF, when you upload that fillable PDF into Anvil, we actually automatically grab all of the fields on that fillable PDF. And then once you do that, the task really is to kind of clean up all of the fields on that PDF. So in this case, we have a name field, and the name field is broken out into 3 sections. And so Anvil actually has a field type that corresponds to name field. You can see here it's selected. There are different types of name fields. So you can actually just change this real quick. Go back to name field. And it'll ask you how this name field is set up, right? So you can select it as first, middle, and last name fields, or all in one field. Sometimes it's just a giant blank for the entire name. So once you select first, middle, and last name fields, you say this is the first name. And then you can link up the other fields. You'll notice here that there's a second last name field. This is actually a new feature we pushed to support Spanish speakers. Oftentimes they have 2 last names, and it does not need to be connected up in this scenario. It's optional. We also have what's called field aliases. These are extremely useful when managing templates, PDF templates. I should say a library of PDF templates. So what it does is it gives you a unique key that can be consistent across all of your PDFs. So when you go to fill out the PDF over API, you can provide data payload with that unique key and know that it'll find its way to the right spot. Clicking through here, we also have address fields similar to the name fields. You can connect up each of the pieces of that address field, or it could be a 2-line address field or a single line address field. And then down here, we have a pretty exciting feature here. It's called lists or also arrays. What it does is it allows you to connect up these fields so that you can pass it an array of data that automatically fills in each of these fields as you kind of, depending on how many items you have. Now, if you have more items than is on the PDF, it actually can be set so that it automatically repeats the page and just keeps filling out those items until the PDF is filled out. That's something we can demo later when we build the workflow. Cool. And then down here, we have the signature fields. I don't have a field alias here. I'll add one, and then signature date. Now, let's say you need to add a new field onto here. That's super easy as well. I know there's a field that specifies gender up here that's not set up, so I'm going to go ahead and set it up. Just draw 2 boxes. And then I'm going to make these boxes a radio group. And then gender. And then the first option here is, First option here is male. And the second option is this one. It is female. So just like that, I added another field onto this PDF. I'm going to resize this one a little bit. Super easy. And then we also have some cool alignment features here. So I can actually select these two boxes and then do that, and it'll align the boxes for you. So that just makes it nice as you're setting up these boxes. Another nice feature is you can actually hold shift and drag, and then you can align all these boxes together. You can also do that here, or move them as a group. So if I do shift and drag, I can move, oops, do that. I can move these boxes as a group. This nice little features to make your life a little easier when you're setting up these PDFs. Great, I'm gonna hit publish. One thing to note about Anvil is everything is version controlled. Makes it really easy to roll back. You can actually test draft versions of PDFs as well. We have documentation on that can be shared later on. But yeah, so you never really have to worry about losing your work. And then this publish feature here, the draft version doesn't actually go live to the published state until you hit publish. You can think of this really as kind of like a pull request, let's say, where the version actually pushed into the main branch. Just going to give it a little name. One thing here, you'll notice that there's an API tab. This API tab gives you all of the information you need to fill out that PDF with data, including an example payload that you can use. We also have a Postman workspace that you can use to test this out as well, with all of the API requests pre-written, formatted. This is the URL that you will use to fill out this specific PDF. You'll notice that it has a unique PDF template ID that's attached at the end. This is the data. Again, because I had added field aliases to this PDF, you can actually see that the JSON payload is quite readable. If you did not add field aliases, this JSON payload, the keys would actually be auto-generated fields that are unique, but would be less human readable. And then finally down here, we have the field information. This is the actual configuration for each of those boxes. You can see that there's a name field, there's the coordinates, everything you need as to kind of debug the system as you're working with Anvil. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and actually skip the etch e-signature piece because we're going to demo that as part of the workflow. So I'm going to go straight to workflow and show you a little bit of the power of workflows. Document templates are great if you just want to generate a PDF over API. You already have all of the information that needs to go onto the PDF. It's a great way to just send data to Anvil, generate the PDF in the background, store it, and then share it out however you choose. Anvil does also have a nice feature where you can specify specific fields on the PDF to maintain its billable status. So even after the PDF is generated, you can go in and edit a field if necessary. So that is a feature that is provided as part of the Anvil document template system. Going into workflows, I want to go ahead and just create a workflow using that existing PDF template. So that's the PDF template we were just looking at. And I want to use that to essentially seed the workflow building process. And as you can see, what we've done is we've taken all of these fields on the right-hand side and automatically created a web form that corresponds to these fields on the right-hand side. You'll notice that there are green boxes here. They were blue before. Blue means that the box is not connected to any data, and green means that there's data that's going to be flowing from the web form into this PDF. So if I were to go ahead and draw a new box, This one has no data flowing to it, so it's blue. But if I select a field from the web form, let's just say email, now that field will be filled out with the email. Again, this is very similar to what we saw in the template editor. Essentially, it's the same thing. You can go through and add extra fields. You can actually add another PDF if you want into this workflow as well to be filled out. You can also add logic to decide if this PDF should be visible as part of the final packet. And that logic will be based on information on the web form. So you can add that right there. Moving over to the web form. This web form is meant to be really easy to use for somebody who's non-technical. You can go through and drag fields around. I'm actually going to delete nickname here. You can make certain fields optional. So let's go ahead and, I should have made that field optional. I'll add a new field. Input field. And you can make this field optional. You'll see here that it has a little red icon. That means this data is not flowing to any PDF, but it will be part of the structured data payload at the end. We have a bunch of different field types. What this does is it has built-in kind of validation to make sure that the field data is structured properly. So for example, like social security number, we automatically format it and mask it for you. If I go ahead and test this, I just click the play button so I can test this right now. And type that in, and you see it's formatted properly. In a live submission, this would actually be masked out except for the last 4 digits. Cool. Other things you can do here, I'm going to change this title, past address, like that. And you can also specify you want the last 4 digits or last 4 digits of a zip code for this address field. And then lastly, I'm going to add some logic onto this input field. So let me move that down here. Add some field logic. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong button there. I want to say if gender equals male, this field will now be visible. If it's not, then this field will be hidden. So let's go ahead and test that. Gender equals male. If I say female, nothing. So there's really nice, like really simple ways to add logic into here. And then also, I know I kind of alluded to this earlier, for the more technical audience, you can actually go ahead and directly edit the logic. This is a little hard to read because these are auto-generated IDs, but you can actually write a short snippet of JavaScript yourself to be placed into here to dynamically hide or show a field based on a calculation, for example. Cool. Another thing you can do is also create another web form. So you can have 2 web forms. This is a common use case, especially for when there are 2 parties filling out the information. Maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's an advisor and a customer. It makes it really easy to do that. Great. And then last thing here, I'm going to make sure that this address field is hooked up correctly. So it's currently connected to this list, the list field on the web form. Again, this is a list field. You can add any number of addresses. This is connected up to this list or array of fields on the PDF. Make sure it's properly selected. And then we need to add a signer. So I'm going to say add signer. And a signer needs 2 pieces of information. We need an email and a first name, and a name. And this information is coming from the web form. There are a couple of other options here that you can select. You can have them draw, or it could be a script version of their name, and then have them click each field individually. add the signer to the signature data as well. And then finally, we have some settings here. You can change the slug for the URL. You can set up some signature settings down here, lock the workflow upon submission, stuff like that. And then there's some information on how you can embed this workflow inside of your system. I'm going to go ahead and hit publish. And let's go ahead and test this. So I'm just going to hit test, put in my name, social security number. You'll see that this will get masked. Put in a birthday. I'm going to say male, so it shows up as optional input field. I'm going to skip it. Home address, you'll notice it's really nice. It automatically pulls up nearby locations. So with Google Maps, driver's license. I didn't add any validation to this, but this is something that you could add custom validation to, again, using a little JavaScript snippet. And then down here, let's add the addresses. So let's just add a couple of these. Add another item. One thing you'll notice is that Anvil is designed so that's a form that's down the middle. This is to make it mobile friendly out of the gate. In this workflow, I only created one page, but you can actually break these questions up into multiple pages if you wanted to as well. So it's highly customizable. And then finally, you can actually inject CSS to style the web form to make it look like your product. That's something we provide a nice little mechanism for. You provide us a CSS file, and then we will style the product based on your CSS file. Little checkbox here, I'm going to hit review info. This review info page can be turned on or off. Not everybody wants it. Sometimes it's nice to be able to kind of jump right to the field to edit something, but it's not a requirement to show. And then I'm going to show you this, the generated documents. So here's the signature experience. This entire experience can be also embedded into your product as a separate feature. This one is currently part of the workflow, but it's the exact same experience. It's also stylable. You can add your own colors. And you'll see down here, we have the PDF completely filled out based on the information that I entered. There's a couple of blank spots here for signature, and all I have to do is hit start signing. And that workflow is done. At this point, as a developer, you can register for webhooks, and it'll notify your system that a submission has been completed. It'll provide you the structured data as well as a link to the completed documents. And then in the dashboard, you can see that there's a status of this was completed a minute ago. All of this information in the dashboard is also accessible over the API. So you can grab it, you can query our systems for anything that's currently open, not yet completed. That's all accessible over API. And again, like everything inside of Anvil, there is a API information page to make this easy. You can easily access the workflow EID. This is the organization EID. So this is the organization that you built the workflow in. There's a sample payload of data that you can use to pre-populate the workflow before it's presented to a customer. And then some information on how to use this data in your integration, as well as links to the documentation. So that's pretty much Anvil in a nutshell. I will go back to this deck here. And it looks like we are on to Q&A.